Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Schools of Excellence podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode. I mean, I'm always excited about episodes because I love sharing content with you guys. Today's podcast is all about the unseen impact of your calendar on profit, retention, and enrollment issues. And the reason why I'm recording this conversation now is because a lot of leaders are struggling with profitability, with cash flow, with economic contraction, with enrollment issues, with retention, both staff retention and parent retention. And I think a lot of leaders are scrambling and trying to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, what will work, what's going to actually make an impact. But the root cause of all of these issues is actually hidden in plain sight. It's your calendar. It is 100% your calendar. Profit, retention, enrollment, all of these are calendar issues because the way that you organize your time and priorities directly impacts these three components. And so the way that you structure your calendar, which is essentially your lead metrics, drive the outcomes that you desire. So in today's conversation, I'm really going to walk you through how to break this down and how the calendar impacts you in such a visceral way that you don't even realize. And this is just a huge part of what I'm constantly doing with our clients when we work with them, because as much as people are resistant to say, I don't really keep a calendar, I just write a to-do list, I just do this, I have ADD, I can't do this, I can't focus, I like to do 1,000 things at once. Those are all excuses and just extra energy being spent on not understanding that your calendar is the biggest driver of the goals that you want to achieve inside of your center. So the first thing I want to talk about here is your calendar is always a reflection of your priorities. Always, 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 always. Your calendar and your bank account are reflections of your values and your priorities. You've heard me say this multiple times on the podcast. If I want to know what someone values, I look at their bank statement and I look at their calendar. And in 5 seconds, I could tell you exactly what this person values and what they prioritize. Your calendar is a direct reflection of where you're putting your focus. Wherever you put your focus and attention, that's where energy flows. So if your calendar is filled with low value tasks, your school's performance is going to suffer. It's going to actually truly be impacted. Now, a lot of leaders that I work with, even leaders that are running multi-million-dollar operations, multi-site operations, 5, 10, 15, 20 locations, the way that they operate in their day is reactive versus proactive. They spend a lot of time reacting to the daily issues, to the questions that come at them, to the opportunities that are presented in front of them, instead of really proactively focusing on what is the activity that will drive the growth that I desire inside of my center. And so they don't dedicate enough time to activities that drive profitability, retention, enrollment, all of these things. And instead, a lot of time is focused and the energy goes to solving issues, management issues, communication issues, staff issues, leadership challenges, meetings of projects or kickoff calls of things that you don't need to be involved in. And all of these things are just showing you, look how many hours you're actually spending on low value activities. One of the exercises that I do regularly when I audit my calendar, I'm going to walk you through how to audit your calendar, is I quickly look at how many hours a week am I working in my business. So delivering, like coaching clients, delivering, doing any of those activities versus working on my business, which is activity that drives the brand growth, the IP creation, right? So in Schools of Excellence, we have 7 trademarks of assessments, diagnostics, and thought leadership that grow the brand. The podcast, what I'm recording right here, is a brand building activity. This is very different than an activity of coaching a client. Both are important, but I have to make sure that my calendar doesn't only have delivering and servicing people, but it's also brand building and working on my business. Recording a podcast and getting it out there is a perfect example of working on my business, because the podcast grows our brand and helps us reach thousands and thousands more people. So that's what I mean by looking at those things, and I'm going to explain more about it. Okay. The activity that you need to be looking at, and this is the first exercise you could do. So if you're driving or doing something else, come back and listen, or press pause and take out a piece of paper. What activity directly impacts profit, enrollment, and retention? So if you're the owner and you're listening to this, do you know what activities only you can do that impact the profitability, the enrollment, and your retention? And if you're a director that's listening to this, or if you're an owner and you want your director to listen to this episode, what is their activity that directly impacts those factors? So not reactive, which is, oh, I ran the tour. Okay, but if you don't have enough tours because your enrollment is down, then you need to be doing activity that brings people to the tour, right? So that requires visibility. So if you remember, in a previous episode, I had 3 strategies of how to increase enrollment this month. Go back to that episode. I walk you through how to be more visible as an owner. So you need to be looking at what impacts profitability. Well, payroll, expenses, auditing financials, all of these things impact profitability, but you have to know how to audit your financials and forecast properly from a cash flow perspective, and understanding the discerning questions that you need to be bringing your tax strategist, your financial advisor, your accountant. They know what they know, right? To them, every single thing that they look at is like, this is how it has to be done. This is the best practice. This is the best practice. They don't know your center. And as a leader, as an owner, you have a responsibility to your center to actually come and ask the difficult questions to your financial team that is impacting your profitability. That's one component of just like payroll, expenses, all of that. Another bucket that impacts profit is product. Profit can be a product problem. What do I mean by that? Well, you might be struggling with enrollment because your offer doesn't align with your market anymore. And so you're marketing a product, your school, to people that don't need your product. So your enrollment is struggling. So this is not a marketing problem. Like, we need to hire more marketing people to help us rebuild our website and rebuild our ad campaigns. No, your profit problem is actually a product issue. You need to redevelop your product and make it stronger and make it align to what your demographic is seeking. We had a client that we were working with that she lives in the suburban area, and over the last several months, there's been a giant shift of turning that suburban area into a city, much more rural area. And I said, okay, parents that choose to live in the suburbs versus the city have very different values. They have very different things that they're seeking when they're looking for childcare. Are you shifting your product deliverables, what your school offers, to ensure that it's still aligning with what your parents desire? If you don't, you're going to have an enrollment problem. So this is me guiding the client, forecasting and showing her, this is right now a calendar issue, right? You need to dedicate time on your calendar to revisiting your product, making changes to it before you go and start marketing it again, because you can market all day long, but if your product isn't strong to deliver to your demographic, you're going to have an enrollment issue, which is going to be a profitable issue. So when I communicate this and when I explain this to clients, it's very earth-shattering for them and like, whoa, I didn't realize that. Calendar is always the root cause. Let's go to staff for a second so that I could go even higher level for you before I go into some more nitty-gritty things. When I was a director for many years and I led schools. When teachers, and I was also a mentor teacher, so it started when I was a mentor teacher. When young staff or new staff in the workforce would come to me and say, I'm struggling with transitions. I'm struggling with this child. This kid is hitting all the time. I can't figure out how to get circle time running properly. Whenever we have to pack up to go outside, one kid always falls or starts crying. There's always an issue there. I'm struggling with my co-teacher. We're not getting along with each other. The first thing that I always look at when a teacher brings me a problem, it doesn't matter what problem she brings me. Whenever she brings me a problem, I look at the daily schedule. What is your daily schedule? Is it developmentally appropriate for the age group that you're teaching? Is your daily schedule reflective of your hours that you are contracted to work in this school and your co-teacher's contracted hours? A lot of times when we look at this, the daily schedule, it's like, 1 second. The reason why you're frustrated is because you don't feel that your co-teacher is carrying her weight. Well, actually, her contracted times start over here, so it's physically impossible for her to carry weight at this hour. If you need support at this hour, you need to come to the director. I was a mentor teacher at the time, and say, hey, this is the challenge that we're experiencing here. Here's what's going on. In order for this classroom to run smoother, the co-teacher needs to, or the colleague or whatever it is, needs to come a half hour earlier in her shift in order for this to happen. And then the director can make a decision with the owner. Can we create more hours? Can payroll take it or whatever it is? And you should, because the teacher needs to be supported, right? So that's a calendar issue. It's a daily schedule issue. I say this all the time till I'm red in the face. Every problem that you are dealing with inside of your center, enrollment, profitability, retention, all the issues that your staff are dealing with, it all comes down to calendar and time, the daily schedule. How are they operating in their days? How to lead those conversations with teachers to help them understand how to create better filters for how they look at their schedule of the day. They cannot look at it in a reactive way, which is just like, oh, okay, I guess this is what the schedule is because this is what the state said, or this is what NACCE said, or this is whatever it is. It doesn't matter what NACCE said. What makes sense for your classroom and your demographic of children and your age group and your season of life? We trust so blindly certain components, not recognizing that you're not an AI botted machine. You're a human who's real, who has a real life, who didn't have a good night's sleep maybe the night before, who ran out the door and wasn't able to grab lunch. Like, all of these things impact your calendar. And it always comes down to that component. Always remember that. Okay, let's move to the second part I want to talk about here, which is the power of activity blocks. Dedicated time blocks on your calendar for activity that influence profit, retention, and enrollment. You must have activities that actually impact your ability to bring in new leads, your ability to sit down and think about, how am I going to upgrade this product and deliverable so that it services our current parents? I don't even know what our parents want. Okay, so then we need a time block on your calendar that has time to interview and have conversation with families. You need a block on your calendar that creates a parent survey. Now, when you're looking at those activity blocks, one of the things that happen a lot of the time is clients will tell me, I have that time block, but something else came up, or this teacher called out, or licensing showed up and I wasn't able to honor the time block. Here's the thing that we need to understand, and maybe this is a whole separate podcast episode. When you have a block on your calendar, you don't just put a block there. It has to be done with just a little bit of brains. Like, I remember I was working with a director many years ago when I first started working with clients on blocks, and she chose Monday morning at 8:30 in the morning for a time block to do one-on-ones with her teachers. And when I met with her 30 days later and we were doing a calendar audit, I said, well, how's it working out for you, your one-on-ones at 8:30 on a Monday morning? And she said, well, I never get to it. I said, well, let's think about why. Why would Monday morning at 8:30 probably not be an ideal time to run one-on-one? She's like, well, I'm usually doing morning arrival. I'm like, oh, so 8:30 on a Monday morning is actually a block of time that says morning arrival, not one-on-ones. She's like, oh, I feel so stupid. I said, it's not about feeling stupid. It's about going on the field of play, running the play, which you did. It didn't work. Now you came back to get feedback. The feedback is telling you Monday morning at 8:30 is not a correct block to run one-on-one meetings with staff. Great. Now that you have that information, let's look at a week and let's think, what would be a better hypothesis of a time that we could put some blocks for one-on-ones with teachers? So she said, maybe Thursday afternoon. I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Do you have any reoccurring commitments that happen on Thursday afternoon? So she said, yes, actually, I have to leave early on Thursdays. I forgot at what time, because I have to pick up my daughter from my ex. She was a single mom. I said, okay, well then Thursdays is not a good time for you to do one-on-ones with your teachers because you have a predetermined commitment already. Now, that predetermined commitment didn't exist in her calendar. She wasn't using her calendar yet at the level that she could be. But she did remember that Thursdays she usually leaves early. I said, okay, right now in your calendar, let's do it together and let's block out Thursdays from 3:00. You're not available because you leave the center. So it's not every Thursday a surprise. I didn't get to one-on-ones again this week. Oh, next week I'll try. And then next week, Thursday comes again. And oh, what happens? You got to pick up your daughter again. You still can't do the one-on-ones. So put a reoccurring block inside of there. Now, for some of you that are listening, this feels so basic, and that's fine. For some of you that are listening, it's like, wow, I didn't realize that component. And filter it through the lens of where am I making this mistake over and over again, and putting something in my calendar, knowing very good and well that I'm probably not going to get to it. And it's just a placeholder. No, blocks are not placeholders. They're actual blocks of time that you need to work on the profit producing activity. Okay, let's continue. We have a framework called the School Leader Scorecard. This is a framework that I created about 3.5, almost 4 years ago at this point. And the School Leader Scorecard helps owners categorize their activity based on their value, ranging from $10 an hour tasks all the way to $10,000 an hour tasks. Most of the time when our clients run through the School Leader Scorecard, they recognize that close to 60% of their time is focused on $10 an hour tasks. Well, let me tell you something. If you're an owner and 60% of your time is on $10 an hour tasks, you're going to have a profit problem. You're going to have a serious profit problem. Your activity needs to be on $10,000 an hour tasks. What is an example of a $10,000 an hour task? Sitting down and redoing your product offer is a $10,000 an hour task. You as an owner sitting in a block of time, 90 minutes, 2 hours, and brainstorming ideas of how to reposition the offer or what else you can offer parents or how you can redesign or remessage it, that's a $10,000 an hour task, because when that's completed, you can actually go to the market and actually increase your profitability because you're actually communicating to your demographic. That's one example of a $10,000 an hour task. A $10 an hour task is plunging a toilet, scrolling on social media, walking around the building saying, does anyone need anything? That's a $10 an hour task. You don't go around saying, does anyone need anything? Thinking well, I'm just always available for my staff. Well, I'm really like that. We're really like a family. I really need to connect with everyone. No, you don't. You need blocks of time where people can actually connect with you in a meaningful way and have a conversation with you. That is a $10,000 an hour task. Sitting and connecting with a member of your leadership team and working through and building out a system. So not just like dealing with the issue at hand, but actually like, this is an issue that came up. This is a systems gap. Let's sit together over here and brainstorm. How can we build this problem and actually now turn it into a system? One of the things that I teach inside of our membership is how to take your worst employee who you just fired and make that into a giant profitable growth initiative inside of the business. How? You take all of the issues, you turn those into systems that exponentially scale your company, right? And that's just, again, side component there, right? Using the scorecard helps you audit your calendar and identify activity that needs to be delegated, outsourced, or eliminated, right? This is what it means to do a calendar audit. A lot of times people are like, well, I audit my calendar. I'm like, auditing your calendar means auditing it through the School Leader Scorecard framework. And then you look at what on my calendar needs to be delegated because it's not a profit producing activity. What could be outsourced because someone else who I pay 10, 15 bucks an hour to, it's worth it for me to outsource it because I don't get paid 10 to 15 bucks an hour. My time is worth way more than that. And what could be eliminated? Do you know how many times on my calendar I see certain meetings where I'm like, no, not doing that anymore. It's eliminated, done, not doing it anymore, right? This is what it means to run a proper calendar audit. Now, another component of why a lot of leaders don't delegate, outsource, or eliminate stuff on their calendar, and this is a whole separate conversation, I'm going to give some insight here because it's part of today's conversation. It's being an anxious decision maker versus a calm and peaceful decision maker. And so an anxious decision maker, when they see an opportunity for cash or how to save money, they jump at it. They're like, boom, we can make money. Let's go at it. We could buy this building. Let's go buy this building. We can open up another classroom. Boom, let's go open up another classroom. We could save money here. Boom, let's cut this out. Let's stop doing this professional. Let's cut this. They jump versus being peaceful and thoughtful and saying, 1 second. Does this align with my calendar goals, right? With the business goals? So I want to tell you just a story that literally just happened a couple of months ago, where just to recognize what it means to be a thoughtful, intentional decision maker about opportunity that comes to you. So I had someone reach out to me who asked me to do a full kind of in-depth training on site in their company. So they wanted me to come to do like a big leadership intensive, 2 days in their company. It would require a lot of like pre-work and then in the center itself, and then work in the center, and then follow-up calls and implementation and all of this kind of stuff. And it's the kind of stuff that I love to do. I love connecting with leaders. I love coming inside of schools. I love all of this kind of stuff, right? And it was in a tremendous profitable opportunity. So it was going to get paid a lot. She was getting funding from the government as well. And it was going to be a huge cash injection into our business. But I don't just say yes to opportunity. I have filters for how I make decisions with my calendar, right? Because always remember, my calendar determines the profitability and the growth and the sustainability of the company. So before I went and said yes or designed a proposal or did anything, I sat down with my mentor and I said, okay, here's the opportunity. Where are my blind spots in seeing this within my calendar? And then the first thing that Todd said, who's my mentor, was, this is a no. You need to say no to this opportunity. And here's why, right? And then we spoke about it. Why? The goals on my calendar right now are about solidifying and growing our membership. So creating new content, new IP, upgrading the content and training portal, connecting with our members, and creating a phenomenal podcasting. So that's why you're seeing a lot of amazing new episodes coming out. This opportunity doesn't fit in those priorities. And it's not a leveraged activity, meaning when I go down there, once I'm done, I'm done. It closes that chapter. It's not a leveraged activity where it's like, okay, and now I could use this for something else, or I could repurpose it, or it drives other income growth. It doesn't. It's a standalone, which is amazing and it's great. But I'm not operating in a season of life where I could do a standalone. My activity has to be leveraged because of these 3 big priorities, and because I'm raising 4 young kids and I refuse to work more than 25 hours a week. Those are the constraints of my calendar, right? Again, my calendar dictates these things. And so I declined the opportunity. Now, someone else who has a different business model or has different business goals would jump at the opportunity. And that's fine, and that's great for them. This is why you have to have radical self-awareness. What are my goals? What are my priorities? What are my values? What am I shooting towards? And how does my calendar reflect it? And while I had to sit in probably an hour or 2 of discomfort of saying no to that opportunity because I really wanted to say yes, I knew and I know that the future version of me and my calendar will be grateful that I said no to that, because it keeps me anchored. Because in 90 days from now, I want better and upgraded content in our training portal for our members. I want more podcasts that are timely and focused and driven for you guys who listen to the podcast. If I took my eyes off of those 3 priorities and moved it to there, one of these 3 priorities would be hurt, which means in 90 days from now, I would not see the result that I'm looking for. So a lot of times leaders will say things like, well, we set that goal, we set that intention, but teachers called out or this happened. And it's like, no, those are the most dumbass excuses ever. That is not why you didn't hit your goals, because someone called out or you were short staffed or whatever it is. That is not the reason. Your calendar is not disciplined and focused on your priorities and your focus. And a lot of that has to do with you don't know what you're supposed to prioritize. You don't know even what you're trying to achieve in 90 days from now. You're just trying to get through the day. You're just trying to figure out, oh my God, we're hemorrhaging cash. Where do I boom, 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 stop everything so that I could stop hemorrhaging cash? You're not thinking strategically and pausing. This is why our clients work with us, because we ride them through some of the most craziest, ambiguous seasons of leadership and help them stay grounded, sturdy, thoughtful, intentional about how they're committing to their calendars. Okay, let's go to the final component of today's conversation, which is follow through and accountability. As you build out your calendar to reflect all of these components, conducting regular audits ensures that you remain aligned with your lead metrics and your profit goals. Your lead metrics are your accountability blocks, right? Your lead metrics, it's not fancy. It's just what is the activity on your calendar. Those are your lead metrics. I could look at someone's calendar and write, I don't have to look at any fancy dashboards. Show me your calendar. I'll tell you exactly what your lead metrics are. I'll show you exactly what they are. Because your calendar tells me what your lead metrics are and what the goals, the profit goals are inside of the organization. And running regular audits. So we typically recommend our clients run them every other month, audits on their calendar at the minimum once a quarter. Once you get really good at this, you could do it once a quarter. I have a regular block on my calendar that I do a calendar audit on my own, and then I do it with my mentor, Todd. So I'll do it on my own first. I'll work with it on my team. Then I bring that calendar to Todd on a coaching call and I'm like, okay, here is what my calendar looks like now. These are the priorities. These are my activity blocks. This is what I'm committing to. Where are my blind spots? What am I not seeing? What opportunity am I missing out on? Where are some risks that I'm not looking at? What are some potential threats that are coming up that I am being blind to right now? That is the goal of a mentor, right? A good mentor can do that, right? And Todd will do that for me. And I do this for our clients. Our team and our company does this for our clients so they can forecast and look at things properly. Okay, so let's summarize here, okay? Because this was a big, kind of juicy episode. So we started the conversation about you understanding that there's a massive unseen impact of your calendar on profit, retention, and enrollment. Then I walked you through why your calendar is a reflection of your priorities, the power of activity blocks, what the School Leader Scorecard is, which is our framework for how to categorize activity based on value, ranging from $10 an hour tasks to $10,000 an hour tasks. That is inside of our Schools of Excellence membership. And then I walked you through how to do follow through and accountability. So what I want to invite you to think about here is, firstly, hopefully this just whole episode was super valuable. Go back, listen, take notes, rewatch, do all the things. And if you're also listening to this and like, I need to run calendar audits. I need a calendar, period. I have a profit problem inside of my center. I have an enrollment challenge. I have a retention issue, which is also a profit problem and a calendar issue. I have a parent retention issue. I'm not retaining families. Families are leaving. My lifetime value of a parent has dipped. All of these things are systems and frameworks that we want to be implementing into your activity blocks on your CEO calendar, on your calendar as a school leader. Thanks for joining me today. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school and for yourself, I would love if you can do 2 things for me. 1, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And 2, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the podcast to learn about building a school of excellence. And I'd be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support make this show be able to listen to by thousands of other school leaders around the globe. Thanks so much for listening and giving us your time and attention each week.